Most people go through life without ever discovering what they're truly capable of. They settle for less. They accept mediocrity. They choose excuses over action. But not you. Not today. Today, you're going to discover the most important skill you can ever develop. The ability to push yourself when no one else will. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. Success isn't about talent. It's not about luck. It's not about who you know or where you come from. Success is about developing the discipline to do what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not. That's what sets people apart. That's where real change begins. I've spent years studying people who have achieved extraordinary things, and they all have one thing in common. They learned how to push themselves beyond what was comfortable. They did the things that scared them. They acted even when they didn't feel ready. They kept going even when everything inside of them said, stop. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't that successful people don't feel fear, doubt, or resistance. They do. Everyone does. The difference is that they push through it anyway. They understand something powerful. Growth and comfort cannot exist in the same space. If you want something you've never had, you must be willing to do something you've never done. And the most powerful part is this. Every single day, you are faced with a choice. You can choose to push yourself, or you can choose to stay the same. You can choose growth, or you can choose comfort. You can choose discipline, or you can choose regret. And the beauty of it is that no one can take that choice from you. No one can decide for you, and no one can stop you. It's yours, and yours alone. But here's the truth. Your life will always be a reflection of the choices you make consistently. Not once, not sometimes, but every single day. If you keep choosing the easy path, you'll live a hard life. But if you consistently choose the hard path, the path of effort, of discipline, of focus, your life becomes easier, more meaningful, more fulfilling. That's one of life's great paradoxes. And most people never figure it out. Now listen closely. Pushing yourself doesn't mean running yourself into the ground. It doesn't mean ignoring your health or sacrificing your relationships. It doesn't mean saying yes to everything or never resting. What it means is much deeper. It means developing the mental strength to do what you know you need to do, even when you don't want to do it, especially when you don't want to do it. We all have two voices inside our heads. One says, you've got this, go for it, you can do it. The other says, it's too hard. You're not ready. What if you fail? And the voice you choose to listen to will shape your entire life. The voice you feed gets stronger. The voice you ignore gets weaker. Successful people have learned to feed the right voice. They've trained themselves to push past doubt, past fear, past hesitation. They've developed what I call the discipline of doing. They do what needs to be done when it needs to be done, no matter how they feel. And here's the amazing thing. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes. There's a fundamental truth about human potential you need to understand. You have more ability than you're using. You have more strength than you're showing, more intelligence than you're applying, more courage than you're expressing. The question is not, do I have what it takes? The real question is, am I willing to push myself to find out? Because most people are living far beneath their potential, not because they can't do more, but because they've accepted limits that don't actually exist. They've bought into the lie that they're average, that success is for someone else, that their dreams are out of reach. But that's not true. And deep down, you know it. The difference between you and the person you admire most isn't some special ability. It's consistency. It's the daily decision to push forward, even when it's hard, even when it's quiet, even when no one is watching. Because consistency is the mother of mastery. It's not what you do once in a while that transforms your life. It's what you do every single day. Discipline isn't a one-time event. It's a daily choice. It's a lifestyle. It's the invisible foundation that supports everything you want to achieve. So ask yourself right now, where in your life do you know you could be doing better? Your health, your career, your relationships, your personal growth, whatever it is, you already know what to do. The question is not what, the question is, will you push yourself even when it's inconvenient, even when you're tired, even when nobody's watching? Because if you do, if you choose to push yourself today, even just a little, you start changing your future right now. And that is the first step toward becoming the person you were meant to be. Think about it carefully. Every morning you wake up, you're standing at a crossroads. Right in front of you, there are two paths. One leads to what's familiar, the easy, the predictable, the safe. The other leads to discomfort, to challenge, to the unknown. And even though no one around you may notice it, that silent decision you make each day is what determines your destiny. Most people, without even realizing it, choose the easy road. Not because it's better, but because it doesn't hurt, because it doesn't demand anything procrastinating immediate because it doesn't force them to confront their own excuses. But what they don't realize is that every time they choose ease today, they are silently choosing a harder life tomorrow. And here's the irony. That comfort zone everyone clings to, it's not really comfortable, it's just familiar. There's a quiet discomfort that grows with time, a restlessness inside that whispers, you could be doing more. You could be more. That voice isn't your enemy, it's your wake-up call. It's trying to remind you that there's a version of yourself you haven't met yet. A stronger, more focused, more capable version. But that version of you doesn't live in your comfort zone. That version is built through effort, through action, through challenge. And no, you don't need to transform your life overnight. You don't need to be a superhero. All you need to do is push yourself just a little more today than you did yesterday. Just that. Because when you do that, when you push a little more today, you don't just change today, you change every day that comes after it. You change your trajectory, and every time you choose to do the uncomfortable, to get up early, to train, to study, to finish what you start, you're sending a message to your mind. I'm in charge here. Not my excuses, not my fears, not my feelings. And over time, that message becomes your truth because your feelings are temporary, but your decisions define you. Real growth doesn't happen on the easy days. It happens when you don't feel like doing anything, but you do it anyway. When no one is clapping, when no one is watching, when the only reason you're doing it is because you said you would. That's where the transformation lives. That's what separates the average from the exceptional. So look at your life honestly. Think back to the times when you were growing the most, feeling the most alive, the most proud of yourself. I promise you, those were the times you were outside your comfort zone. You were pushing yourself. You were showing up. You were saying yes to effort. Now think about the opposite, those periods where you felt stuck, where every day felt the same, where nothing moved forward. Chances are you were coasting, doing what you've always done, avoiding challenge, avoiding pressure, avoiding the discomfort that leads to progress. It's not a coincidence, it's cause and effect. So if you want a different life, you have to be willing to do things differently. Wishing won't change your life. Waiting won't change your life. Deciding will, acting will, pushing will, and that's exactly where most people fail. Not because they're not smart, not because they're not talented, but because they want the result without the process. They want the reward without the sacrifice. They want the outcome without the discipline. But that's not how life works. You don't get greatness by accident. You get greatness by decision, by daily effort, by pushing yourself in the small moments when no one's watching. And yes, it will be uncomfortable. Yes, it will be hard, but that's the price. And it's a fair price because the return is massive. There is no greater satisfaction than knowing you gave everything, that you went further than you thought you could, that you became stronger, more disciplined, more committed. And here's the most powerful part of all. Your biggest enemy is not out there. It's not the economy. It's not your past. It's not time or money or anyone else. Your biggest enemy is your comfort zone. That voice that tells you, take it easy, do it later. You're fine where you are. That voice has stolen more dreams than failure ever could. And today you stop listening to it, and today you respond with action. Because the world doesn't need more comfort. The world needs more people who are willing to live with purpose. People who push even when no one's watching. People who are willing to do what others won't so they can live how others can't. And you can be one of them. You just have to begin right here, right now. Pushing yourself doesn't mean doing more of everything. It doesn't mean grinding endlessly, burning out, or saying yes to every opportunity that comes your way. That's not power. That's chaos. Pushing yourself means doing more of the right things and less of the wrong ones. It means moving with direction, not just motion. Because activity is not the same as progress. And too many people live trapped in this illusion. They fill their days with tasks. They stay busy. They hustle nonstop. But when the dust settles, they haven't actually moved forward. They're running on a treadmill, not climbing a mountain. That's why pushing yourself doesn't start with intensity. It starts with clarity. You need to know what matters. You need to strip away the noise. You need to ask yourself every day, is what I'm doing right now taking me closer to the life I want? Or is it just keeping me distracted? Because the truth is, many people work hard, but very few people work with precision. And that's where the breakthrough happens. Not in doing more, but in doing what truly counts. And here's the hard part. The things that count are usually the hardest to do. They're the ones you avoid, the uncomfortable conversations, the disciplined habits, the deep work that doesn't give you instant rewards, the gym sessions that don't show results immediately, the book you should read instead of scrolling, the business plan you should refine instead of binge watching. You already know what these things are in your life. The question is, will you do them consistently? And that's where most people stop, not because they can't do them, but because they don't feel like doing them. They wait for motivation, they wait for the right mood, they wait for things to feel right. But here's the truth. Feelings are not facts. Feelings are not strategy. If you let how you feel dictate what you do, you will never build the life you want. Discipline begins when motivation ends. Growth begins when comfort ends. And freedom begins when you learn to act regardless of how you feel. This is what separates high performers from average ones. They've learned to move forward when others stop. They've trained their minds to say yes to the uncomfortable. And that training is available to anyone, but it requires a decision, a commitment, a standard, not once, every day, because life is not changed by occasional inspiration. Life is changed by daily discipline. Think about it. How many times have you told yourself you'll start tomorrow, you'll commit next week, you'll go all in when the timing is better, and how many times has that perfect moment never come? Because the perfect moment is a myth. It's an excuse wrapped in logic. There will always be reasons to wait, but what there won't always be is time. Time doesn't pause. It doesn't rewind. And every day you wait is a day you're not becoming who you were meant to be. So let's be honest. What's really holding you back right now? Is it truly lack of time? Or is it a lack of urgency, a lack of structure, a lack of self-trust? Maybe it's fear of failure, fear of looking foolish, fear of not being good enough. But let me tell you this, fear is not a signal to stop. It's a signal that you're moving in the right direction because everything you want is on the other side of fear. Everything. Confidence on the other side of fear. Growth on the other side of fear. That next level version of you, definitely on the other side of fear. And you don't need to conquer fear. You just need to keep moving with it. Let it come, let it scream, and walk forward anyway, because courage is not the absence of fear. It's action in the presence of fear. And every time you take that action, no matter how small, you rewrite who you are. You stop being the person who hesitates and start becoming the person who executes. That identity shift doesn't happen with one big gesture. It happens through small, deliberate, consistent actions that compound over time. Because this is how lives are transformed, not through one massive leap, but through thousands of intentional steps. Not through once-a-year resolutions, but through daily standards. Not through occasional inspiration, but through relentless repetition. It's not glamorous, it's not always exciting, but it works. And the people who live the lives others admire are the ones who show up, not once in a while, but every day, especially on the days they don't feel like it. So the next time your mind tells you not today, when it tells you to skip the workout, to delay the call, to postpone the discipline, to do it later, remember this, later is where dreams go to die. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to move forward consistently with intention, because that's the real secret. The people who win in life aren't the ones who are the smartest or the most talented or the most connected. They're the ones who made a decision to push themselves every single day. And that decision, you can make it too, right now. There's something you need to understand at a deep level. Your life is not shaped by what you do once in a while. It's shaped by what you do every single day. The most powerful transformation doesn't come from one big breakthrough. It comes from 1,000 small moments where you choose effort over ease, discipline over distraction, commitment over comfort. And the truth is, most people never change their lives because they underestimate the power of small decisions repeated consistently. They think that if a single action doesn't bring immediate results, it's not worth it. But that's the lie that keeps them stuck. Because here's what most people don't realize. Extraordinary results are built on invisible progress. The compound effect is real. If you get just 1% better each day, you won't be twice as good in a year. You'll be 37 times better. Not because of one grand act of motivation, but because of hundreds of simple, unremarkable choices that add up over time. Every time you show up to train, even when you're tired, every time you choose to study instead of scroll, every time you say no to the easy option, every time you keep a promise to yourself, that's you casting a vote for the kind of person you want to become. And that identity starts to solidify with repetition, because success is not an event, it's a system. It's not about what you do occasionally when you're excited or inspired. It's about what you do, especially when you're not. And it's in those quiet, unglamorous moments when no one is watching, when no one is applauding, when no one even knows what you're doing, that the real transformation happens. Because that's when you're not doing it for the recognition. You're doing it for you, for your vision, for the standard you've decided to live by. That's where self-respect is born. In the daily discipline, in the follow-through, in the silence, and when you start building that track record with yourself day after day, you begin to trust yourself. You start to believe that when you say you're going to do something, you'll do it. And that belief, that's the foundation for unstoppable confidence. See, confidence doesn't come from positive affirmations. It doesn't come from waiting until you feel good. It comes from evidence. Evidence that you're showing up. Evidence that you're doing the work. Evidence that you're not the same person you were yesterday. And the only way to collect that evidence is by pushing yourself consistently, even when no one is clapping, even when the scale doesn't move, even when the numbers don't rise, even when progress is invisible. Because progress is almost always invisible at first. It hides beneath the surface, just like a seed planted underground. It doesn't break through on day 1 or day 2, but that doesn't mean nothing is happening. It's building roots. It's getting stronger. It's preparing to grow. And your effort is no different. You may not see the fruits today, but that doesn't mean the work isn't working. What separates those who grow from those who stay stuck is one simple decision: to keep going even when the payoff isn't immediate, to trust the process, to trust that if you keep showing up, the results will come. Because they do, always, but only for the ones who keep showing up. That's the real secret. That's the truth behind every transformation you admire. It wasn't magic, it wasn't sudden, it was daily, it was silent, it was hard, and it was worth it. So the next time you wonder if your efforts matter, when you're tempted to skip, to quit, to tell yourself it's not working, remember this: every rep counts. Every word you write counts. Every book you read counts. Every time you act instead of procrastinate, you're building something. Maybe you can't see it yet, but you're building it, and one day the world will see what you've been building all along. But even more important than what the world sees is what you become in the process. You become someone who doesn't give up, someone who doesn't need validation to stay committed, someone who knows how to delay gratification, someone who's unshakable, not because life is easy, but because you've trained for this. That's what pushing yourself every day creates. A person of discipline, a person of vision, a person of strength, and that person, that's who you were always meant to be. Let's get brutally honest. You already know what you need to do. You've read the books, you've watched the videos, you've listened to the podcasts, you've had the conversations, you've made the plans, you visualize the outcome. You know exactly what steps would move your life forward. But knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. And that's where most people fail. Not because they're lacking information, but because they're not using it. They stay stuck, not because they don't know what to do, but because they don't do what they know. And that gap, that space between knowing and doing, that's where dreams die. That's where potential fades. That's where the version of yourself you could have become never shows up. You don't need another secret. You don't need another strategy. What you need is the courage to do what you already know you should be doing. And that's the hard truth. Because pushing yourself isn't about discovering more. It's about doing more with what you've already discovered. The difference between the life you want and the life you have isn't some mystery. It's in the habits you repeat, the actions you delay, the promises you break to yourself when no one's looking. Every day you say, "I'll start tomorrow." You're choosing the same life again. Every time you choose comfort over commitment, you're telling your future, "Wait a little longer." And you wonder why things haven't changed. But they can change. They will change. If you close the gap, and that gap is not just where failure lives, it's also where your power is waiting. Your future is sitting right there on the other side of action. But it's not going to come to you. You have to go to it. You have to cross the discomfort. You have to break through the resistance. You have to act even when the results aren't instant. Because that's where strength is built, in the silence. When no one's cheering, when no one notices, when it's just you in the mirror deciding whether you're going to follow through or not. That's where identity is forged, and that identity becomes your destiny. Every time you take action when you could have waited, you're not just doing a task. You're casting a vote for the kind of person you are. Not the person you say you want to be, but the person you're actually becoming. You want to be disciplined? Do disciplined things. You want to be focused? Do focused things. You want to be successful? Do the hard, boring, uncomfortable things that successful people do every single day. And the most powerful part, it doesn't matter where you're starting from. It doesn't matter if you failed 100 times before. All that matters is that you decide right now that you're done waiting, done planning, done pretending. you're ready to do. And when that decision becomes real, something shifts. You stop negotiating with your excuses. You stop blaming your circumstances. You stop needing perfect timing. You stop telling yourself one day. You realize it's already day one. Look around your life. Where are the places you're stuck in preparation mode? What are the things you keep saying you'll get to later? Where are you pretending to be making progress, but really just hiding behind motion instead of action? Be honest, because honesty will set you free, but only if you act on it. This is the moment where the average version of you begins to die, and the disciplined, relentless, real version of you begins to rise. Not because you've discovered something new, but because you finally started doing what you already knew. The gap is waiting. The question is, will you step into it? This is where most people quit. Not when things are hard, not when they're exhausted, not even when they fail. No, most people quit when it feels like nothing is happening, when they're doing the work, showing up, giving effort, and yet the results are nowhere to be seen. That silence, the one where you're putting in the reps, but there's no applause, no confirmation, no reward, that's the most dangerous place for your dreams. Because it's in that silence that doubt creeps in. It whispers, what's the point? It says, maybe this isn't working. It tempts you to back off, slow down, retreat. But that's exactly the moment where the few rise and the many fall. You see, the true cost of quitting is never about giving up the work. It's about giving up who you were becoming through the work, the strength you were building, the consistency you were mastering, the identity you were forming when no one else noticed. This is the hard truth most people never hear. Progress doesn't always announce itself. It's quiet, it's slow, it's invisible until it's not. Until suddenly, one day, people call you an overnight success. But you'll know better. You'll know it wasn't one day. It was hundreds of days where you showed up, pushed, stayed disciplined, even when nothing seemed to be changing. That's the part no one sees. The early mornings, the late nights, the workouts with no visible difference, the studying with no grades yet, the extra hours no one pays you for, the sacrifices no one thanks you for. But all of it matters. All of it counts. Because the most important transformation doesn't happen outside. It happens within. It's not about what you're building. It's about who you're becoming while you build it. And in those invisible moments where you push through boredom, fatigue, frustration, silence, that's where your future is being written. That's where discipline is developed. That's where emotional toughness is built. That's where your next level is earned. You have to stop believing that success is supposed to feel exciting all the time. Because it's not. Most of the time, it's repetitive, boring, quiet. But that's the difference between amateurs and professionals. Amateurs crave hype. Professionals crave progress. They don't chase the dopamine of motivation. They chase the compound effect of doing the right thing over and over and over again, long after the mood has disappeared. So if you're in that season right now, working hard, staying focused, pushing yourself daily but not seeing the payoff yet, good. That's exactly where you're supposed to be, because the payoff is coming. But only if you stay in the game long enough to receive it. Most people quit right before the breakthrough. Not years before, not months before, just a few decisions away from change. They stop because they didn't feel it. They didn't see it. Don't let that be you. The people who build powerful lives, strong bodies, lasting businesses, unshakable self-respect, they're not always the most talented or gifted. They're just the ones who kept going when most people stopped. They understood that every invisible rep mattered. That just because it isn't obvious now doesn't mean it's not working. That the pain of staying consistent is temporary. But the pain of quitting too early, that lasts forever. This is the difference maker. This is the turning point. Will you be the person who folds under silence or the person who thrives in it? Will you need constant feedback to keep going? Or will you trust your vision enough to move forward without permission? Because that's what this comes down to, self-leadership. Can you lead yourself even when there's no audience? Can you lead yourself even when there's no applause? Can you lead yourself even when your only reward is knowing you kept your promise to yourself? If you can do that, you become unstoppable, because nothing outside of you controls you anymore. Not people, not praise, not progress reports, only your standard. And that standard, you build it right now, in the silence. There's something you need to understand, something that goes beyond discipline, beyond motivation, beyond personal ambition. When you push yourself, you're not just doing it for you. You're doing it for everyone who looks to you, learns from you, lives around you. Whether you realize it or not, someone is watching, someone is being shaped by your actions or your inaction. And the question is, what are you teaching them? What are you showing them is acceptable? Is it okay to settle, okay to quit, okay to make excuses? Or are you showing them what it looks like to rise, to resist mediocrity, to keep going when it would be easier to stop? The truth is, you may be the only example of discipline someone ever sees. You may be the only proof someone has that it's possible to keep your word, to live with intention, to refuse to break when life gets hard. And that's not pressure, that's purpose, that's a gift. That's an opportunity to live in a way that elevates everyone around you. Because when you grow, others grow with you. When you raise your standards, others raise theirs. When you start pushing your limits, people notice. And some of them start doing the same. But here's the other side. If you don't, they won't. If you stay small, they stay small. If you make excuses, they'll believe theirs are valid too. If you back down every time it gets hard, they'll believe hard is a good reason to stop. And that's not who you want to be. You didn't come here to be average. You didn't come here to shrink yourself to make others comfortable. You didn't come here to survive. You came here to lead. And leadership doesn't start on a stage. It starts in your habits, in your routines, in your example. Maybe your kids are watching. Maybe your partner is watching. Maybe your team, your friends, your younger self who still lives inside of you, waiting for proof that you were never meant to stay in the same place. You are the example, and you get to decide whether that example is one of strength or one of surrender. That's why pushing yourself matters, because your life is not isolated. Your commitment has consequences. Your breakthrough becomes someone else's blueprint. Your refusal to quit becomes someone else's reason to keep going. This isn't about perfection. You don't have to be flawless, but you do have to be consistent. You do have to be real. You do have to choose the hard path over the easy one again and again, because that's where impact lives. Think about the people who have most influenced your life. Were they the ones who made it look easy, or were they the ones who pushed through even when it was hard? Were they the ones who took the shortcut, or the ones who showed you what grit looks like? You are becoming that person for someone else right now, even if they haven't told you, even if you don't see it. They're watching, they're learning, they're absorbing, and one day they'll tell their story and you'll be in it. So what kind of role do you want to play in that story? The one who gave up? No, the one who kept going. The one who made excuses, or the one who made it happen. You don't have to be the strongest, the smartest, or the most talented. You just have to show them what's possible when someone refuses to stay small. And let's be real, this is not just about others, this is about you too. Because even if no one else ever noticed, even if no one ever said thank you, you would still owe it to yourself to become the version of you that you were meant to be. You would still owe it to the person you were as a child, full of dreams, full of hope, full of belief, to not let that fire go out. You have one life, one chance, and you get to decide whether it's defined by excuses or execution. Whether your story is one of almost or one of absolutely. Whether you played it safe, or pushed for more. Push yourself, because it matters, not just for where you're going, but for who's watching you go. This is it, the final moment, the line between the life you've lived and the life you're capable of living. And the truth is, it's never been about motivation. It's never been about luck or time or resources or anyone else. It's always been about one thing, your decision. Your decision to push yourself beyond what's easy. Your decision to stop negotiating with comfort. Your decision to stop waiting for the perfect time, the perfect plan, the perfect energy, the perfect weather, the perfect version of yourself, because that version doesn't show up until you start moving. You don't become the person who finishes by thinking about it. You become that person by doing it. Day after day. Rep after rep. Even when it's dark, even when you're tired, even when no one is cheering, that's where greatness begins. Not in public, not in applause, but in those quiet moments when you could have said no and you said yes. When you could have pulled back and you leaned in. When you could have stopped and you kept going. And I need you to understand this. You don't push yourself because life is fair. You don't push yourself because you feel like it. You push yourself because you made a promise to yourself and you intend to keep it. That promise matters more than your feelings. That standard matters more than your mood, because feelings pass, circumstances change, but standards last. And when you raise your standards, your life rises with them. Every time you push through the mental resistance, every time you choose action over comfort, every time you execute when it would have been easier not to, you are rewriting your identity. You are proving to yourself that you're no longer someone who only talks about change. You're someone who lives it, someone who breathes it, someone who refuses to die with their potential still locked inside them. Because let's be real, the cost of not pushing yourself isn't just missed opportunities. It's regret. Heavy, suffocating regret. The kind that doesn't show up today or tomorrow But years from now, when it's too late to go back, when the window is closed, when you realize you didn't run out of time, you just never used the time you had. So don't let that be your story. Don't let your future self look back at this moment and whisper, why didn't you go harder? Why didn't you believe in yourself just a little bit more? Why did you let fear or laziness or doubt win? You don't need a guarantee to begin. You don't need to feel ready. You don't need permission. You just need to move. Move in the direction of your goals. Move in the direction of your calling. Move with conviction, even when you feel uncertain, because clarity doesn't come before action. It comes through it. The longer you wait to push, the further you drift from the person you were meant to be. But when you start pushing, you collapse the distance between who you are and who you're becoming, and suddenly the gap gets smaller. The voice gets louder, the momentum builds, and one day you wake up and realize you're no longer the person who struggled to start. You're the person who's impossible to stop. And all of that begins today, not someday, not after the weekend, not when you have more time. Today, now, this breath, this hour, this step, because this is the only moment that's real. And in this moment, you can choose. You can choose the pain of pushing now, or the pain of regret later. You can choose growth or stagnation. You can choose legacy or excuse. You can choose to become who you were born to be, or you can delay it again. But whatever you choose, just know, no one is coming to save you. No one is coming to do it for you. It's on you. Always has been. Always will be. And that's not a burden, that's a gift. Because if it's on you, that means you have the power to change it, to redirect it, to rise, to build, to win. So push yourself, not once, not sometimes, every day. Push when you're tired. Push when you're doubtful. Push when you've already failed 100 times. Push when your mind screams for comfort. Push when no one else would. Push when no one else does. Because in the end, it won't be the things you did that haunt you. It will be the things you didn't do. The things you had the power to become, but didn't. The chances you had to grow, but didn't take. The moments where you could have risen, but stayed small. Don't let your story end like that. Don't let the best of you stay buried. You have more inside you. More fight, more strength, more greatness, but it only comes out when you do. The time is now, the door is open, the choice is yours. Push yourself and never stop.